Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I have to tell you kind of a funny story. I actually didn't plan to film any videos today other than my vlog channel. But we got home a little bit earlier from our vet appointment. We took Boo Radley to the vet today. His checkout was fantastic. She said he is super healthy for his age and everything checked out great, which we're really happy about. And we got home a little bit early, and so I told Alex, I said, I think I'm gonna do like a grocery store haul in the kitchen. And so I did a grocery store haul, and then I turned around as I was putting stuff away in the refrigerator and I was like, I think I'm gonna do a review of some of these items I just bought. So I did a review, and then I called up to him as I was putting the videos up on the computer and I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm just playing my game, laying here in bed. And so I was like, well, I think I'm gonna do a Peterisms video really quick. So I did my vlog earlier today, which I didn't even post my vlog until like 8 o'clock this morning, so it'll be 2 vlogs that people will get today. So I did my vlog today, which is like over an hour, and then I did a Peter Does Stuff video, and then I did a review video, and now I'm doing a Peterisms video. So I'm feeling very productive today. When I got up and I thought, I'm just gonna do my vlog today because we're running around, we've got all this stuff to do. So I didn't think that I was gonna actually do more than just my vlog today, and I ended up doing all these videos. And so it's kind of funny how sometimes your day doesn't turn out exactly how you expect it to, you know? In a positive way, in a good way. And then I was coming out here and I was getting all my stuff out. I have 2 pairs of reading glasses because the older you get, I guess you need 2 pairs. And then I'm going to read a meditation, and then I'm going to talk about something that, a comment that I received on my video. I want to address a comment about blackouts. And so I'm going to read a meditation because I was just like going through my meditation books, and there was this meditation that I hadn't read from today. And I was like, ooh, I kind of like read the title, and then I started reading a couple sentences, but that's as far as I got. And I was like, oh, I really like this meditation, so I want to read this meditation to start it. But I came out here and my neighbor across the street was grilling out cheeseburgers for dinner for he and his wife. I see his wife like every single day because she works out in her garden a lot, but I haven't seen him for the last couple days. And so I sat down in the chair, and like if I'm sitting like this, it's a direct angle to where his grill is. And so when I sat back, I could see him, and he was like waving at me. And I stood up and I started walking across the street. I said, I am mad at you. I have a bone to pick with you. He goes, what are you mad at me about? He goes, I didn't do anything. I said, listen. I said, I haven't seen you for 3 or 4 days. I haven't talked to you in 3 or 4 days, which has actually only been like a day or 2. I said, and you're consumed with all the ladies at the pickleball league, because he plays pickleball, and I can't play because of the night that the league is during my home group, so I can't play because that was my plan, was to play pickleball this summer with the league, and it's on Tuesday nights, which is my home group meeting night, so I can't do that. But he started laughing. He was like, oh my God. And I said, you know what's so funny is I said, people in my vlog are wanting me to show your wife's gardens, and I did it last year, and I'm going to do it again this year. I said, but they also were asking me if I could show like the food. It's so funny, the things that people get interested in that I talk about. And I said, they also want me to show the food that you grill out on the grill, because he's like consumed with, he has like a regular grill, which is what he was grilling on today, but then he also has one of those green eggs. So anyway, we got laughing so hard. I just love my neighborhood so much. I love sitting out on my front porch. I've been listening to my audiobook like crazy the last 2 days. And, you know, people walking by, them waving to them and talking to them. And it's just so peaceful and serene. And I just did a cameo for somebody for their 30th birthday. And I was thinking back, you know, I mean, it's been almost 21 years since I turned 30. And if you had told me when I was 30 that the biggest source of enjoyment throughout my day would be sitting on my front porch, talking to my neighbors, watering my plants, having, you know, a cup of iced coffee and just relaxing, that would be like and listening to an audiobook, that would be the biggest form of enjoyment throughout my day, I would never have believed that, you know. And it's like, my friend Tanya always says, you know, the older that you get, the road gets narrower. And I think it's so true when you think about those things that bring you happiness in life. Definitely as I've gotten older, the things that bring me happiness are the smaller things in life. And I'm so grateful for that, you know, that I'm able to see that and not get distracted by other things or consumed with other things, because I did for a very long time. And it's those small things like seeing my neighbor across the street grilling out, or his wife working in the yard, or just somebody walking by, or, you know, whatever, that makes me so happy. So, all right, first of all, I want to read a meditation, We'll make this very brief today because I want to talk about the question that I got on my video from yesterday. But I want to read this meditation from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone, which is one of my favorite meditation books. I believe it's June 15th. And this was the meditation for today. Oh, no. What did I look at? What meditation did I look at? Because June 15th is Ideals, which was not the meditation. Oh, here it is, June 18th. I guess I didn't have my reading glasses when I was looking at it, so it's Helping Words. But I'm going to read this one anyway because I think that this one is like a fantastic meditation from what I saw. So this is for June 18th. So you can come back and watch this video on June 18th again if you want to hear this. June 18th, Helping Words. A helping word to one in trouble is often like a switch in a railroad track, an inch between a wreck and smooth rolling prosperity. By Henry Ward Beecher. When friends or family members are troubled, we wonder what we can say to them that will really matter. In times of great sorrow or distress, even the kindest words can seem trite or ineffectual. Often, though, it's not what we say that matters, but that we care enough to say something. The words don't matter so much as the thoughts and feelings behind them. And we should never underestimate how much sympathetic thoughts and feelings mean to those in trouble. It's important for me to show with words and deeds that I care when someone close to me needs help. And I love that meditation. You know, one of the things that I say in my vlog, at the end of each of my vlogs, is reach out to somebody and let them know how much they mean to you. And like I always say in there, because you never know, like I always say, you might be putting a smile on their face, you might be changing their day for the better, you might be making them happier, you might be making them not feel all alone, a bunch of things I say, right? And it's so true. And even like when somebody, to me, reaches out and, you know, just randomly, and I hear from somebody that I haven't heard from in a while, and they say, oh, I just was thinking of you, I want you to know I was thinking of you. Like, it means so much to me. It really, really does, especially when it's somebody that I haven't heard from in a while, you know? And I think it's something that it costs nothing to do. It's just, to put that thought out there into the world, to let somebody know that you're thinking about them. And I think, you know, I think probably one of the misconceptions is that like my phone goes off all day long and I get text messages and phone calls from a lot of people, but that's just not the case. I mean, you know, between like Tanya and Alex and maybe a few other people, like those are the only people, my friend Valerie, a couple other people, that's typically the only people that I hear from, you know, throughout the day. And you know, Alex is at work all day long, so we'll text back and forth, but you know, Tanya and I usually talk in the evenings, and we might, you know, text something funny to each other throughout the day, but like my phone hardly ever goes off. And so when somebody randomly texts me and says, I just want you to know I'm thinking of you, it really means a lot to me. The other thing that I wanted to say about this meditation was, when my mom passed away, and you know, I've gone to so many funerals and viewings, and whenever you're standing in line, like I always want to say something profound to really help that person out, and I never know what to say, you know. And I can remember like years ago, my mom always just said to me, you know, just say how sorry you are, and then think of a positive memory that you have about that person, you know, just, and tell them that positive memory. The thing is that in those days leading up to the viewing or the funeral or whatever, when you've lost somebody that's important to you and you're going through that, like your mind is so scattered anyway that like really, to be honest with you, anything that anybody says is going to kind of get lost in the chaos a little bit, I think, unless it's something that you really have never heard before. And I can remember my mom's viewing was long. It was like 4 hours, and it was constant people coming through for 4 hours. And I don't remember really a whole lot of what anybody said to me. But a coworker of mine, from the past, she sent me a meditation book and a card. And in the card, she said to me, and I'll never forget this because I thought this was such a cool thing to say, and it just was so of her personality, and it really spoke to who she was. And it said in there, I never know what to say at times like this, so just know that I love you, and if you need something, I'm here for you, please reach out to me. And I can remember like reading that card, and it just was like so perfect. It wasn't like, oh, my deepest sympathies, or oh, I'm so sorry, or, you know, like, I'm sure you're going through a really hard time. It wasn't like what everybody else was saying to me. I mean, she just said, I never know. She was just real honest and genuine. She was like, I don't know what to say in situations like this, so just know that I love you, you know? And if you need me, I'm here for you, like whatever you need. The other thing that I've learned from my friend Tanya is to be the action, not to speak the action, which is to, you know, like, I can remember like when her friend was really, really sick, and another friend, her friend's husband was really sick and was dying, and one of our friends in recovery that we saw at a meeting lived by them and said, what can I do to help? And Tanya said, if you know anybody that can mow their lawn, like they could really use their lawn mowed, you know. And Tanya at the time was like, I mean, she was doing so much. She was like taking them dinners and cleaning their houses and all this kind of stuff. And Tanya for me is always an example of giving, you know, of somebody that's just so giving. And I'll never forget, Tanya called me like the next day and she said, I went out to their house and their lawn was mowed. And she said, and she was like putting up the lawnmower, like she'd come out there the very next day and in the morning like mow the lawn, no questions asked, you know. Like she just, not Tanya but our friend, she like went out there and she didn't even know these people real well, you know. She just lived by them, and so she went out there and like mowed their lawn for them, and you know, whatever. And I think that's such a great example of being the action instead of always just speaking the action. You know, I grew up in a generation where my mom and my aunt always took like, you know, loaves of bread or casseroles over to people when they were sick or somebody had passed or whatever. And so I try to be that today because I think that that speaks volumes to people. Okay, so I got this comment. Now, if you didn't watch my video from yesterday, I did a video about making amends to people, and I explained the amends process. And so I got this comment on there because I said, if you guys have questions about my recovery or questions that you would like me to answer, please, please, please let me know what they are. And somebody put this comment on here. I don't want to call them out or say their name, but they said, Peter, can you explain what the term blackout drinking means? Because I've identified myself in the past as a blackout drinker. So many people think it means passing out. I dealt with an addict for years. Thank God I finally broke free, and I know better, but it is a confusing term for most. And I thought it was a really interesting question, and I think there's a lot of people out there that probably know what blackout drinking means, or they think that they have an idea of it. I will say this, I think unless you have lived closely with somebody that's a blackout drinker, or unless you've been a blackout drinker yourself, like I was a blackout drinker from the time that I started drinking. And so, like, not the very, very first time, but closely thereafter, I was pretty much a blackout drinker. And I don't think you really can truly understand it unless you've, like, lived that experience with somebody else or you have been yourself. So I got online because I wanted to give you guys the medical definition of what a blackout was, or as close as I could find. So I Googled, what is a blackout from drinking? And the first definition that comes up from the Mayo Clinic is temporary loss of vision and consciousness. And then when I went down, somebody had asked on there, one of the search results was, what is a blackout from drinking? What happens when you black out from drinking? And this is from the National Institute of Alcoholism. And they said, alcohol-related blackouts are gaps in person's memory for events that occurred while they were intoxicated. These gaps happen when a person drinks enough alcohol to temporarily block the transfer of memories from short-term to long-term storage, known as memory consolidation in a brain area called the hippocampus, which for years and years and years, this is probably still scientific, I don't know. What they said was, unless somebody dies in research that they do in the hippocampus, that they can't really determine whether somebody was an alcoholic or an addict unless they like go in and they do like an autopsy specifically on that area. And that was an area in the brain that like where addiction is. And so they can't really like look into that. And I don't know if that's still the case today. I don't know how they determine those things, but that was just what I was taught like early on when I started like, you know, working with addicts and alcoholics and things like that. So for me, okay, passing out is when you drink so much that then you go to bed or the couch or the floor or whatever and you just pass out and you go to sleep, okay? And that has happened to me as well. Blacking out is when you drink to a certain point and then your memory becomes hazy. For me, typically what would happen is I would drink to a certain point, and because I drank so much my last couple years, there was typically not ever a night that I did not black out my last couple years drinking, because I would get to a certain point and then it would be like I would remember 20 minutes and there would be 20 minutes that would be missing. I would remember 20 minutes, and that's where like the next day people would say to me, oh my God, do you know what you did last night? Like you were dancing on a bar, you did this, you know, you told this person to F off, like, you know, you were kissing this person in a bar, like on and on and on, right? And after a while I got real tired of hearing that kind of stuff. But blackouts can last people depending on how much they've been drinking and how long they've been drinking for and whatever. I mean, I've heard of people that have been in blackouts for days on end. In fact, when I was in treatment with a woman that she had gone to another city. I mean, I've heard a lot of people that have like gone on flights, gone on, you know, driven other cities and things like that. She had gone to another city and gotten married to a guy that she met in a blackout, and she woke up married and had no clue who this person was. She met him in a blackout. She didn't remember meeting him. They had like partied together and kept on drinking, and she got married to him, and she didn't know anything about him. I mean, so really serious stuff can happen, you know. A lot of people like drive and whatever during blackouts, and it can be really, really dangerous. What happens is you continue to function. So somebody in front of you, if you're in a blackout, might not know that you're in a blackout. They'll probably know you're inebriated or that you're intoxicated because you're probably slurring words and you're probably acting, you know, drunk and, you know, maybe falling down and things like that. But they are probably not aware that you are not cognizant of, I mean, I can remember like people saying to me like, oh my God, we had this long conversation last night, don't you remember it? And I had no memory of it whatsoever, right? And what's really scary about it is, for the longest time, honestly, until I got into treatment, I thought it was normal. I thought that that's what happened to almost all people when they drank. What I didn't realize is there are a lot of people that drank just as much as I did, but they never blacked out. They never had memory loss. They never had gaps in their memory and things like that. Most nights, I could never remember how I got home. I could never remember who brought me home. I could never remember where I slept. I mean, I woke up some places and I'd be like, where am I? I remember one night, I think I've shared this story before in my vlog or something like that, but I had a very good couple of friends of mine that were a couple, and they had like this apartment, and like there was like this loft area that they had like a couch in. It was like their office or something like that. And I like woke up and they had like made a bed on the floor, and I was like in full pajamas. Like they had changed me and put me in these pajamas, and I was like, what happened? Like, did something happen like that I don't remember from the night before? And I almost was kind of like a little accusatory of it, you know? And they're like, do you not remember? And I'm like, no. And because they were like making breakfast downstairs for me. Like, that's how nice they were. And I was like thinking like something scandalous had happened. But that was not the case in that situation. But I will say that I woke up with a lot of people and in a lot of situations that were very, very scary, that I had no idea how I got there. And in many situations, I woke up with people that I didn't know, you know, and, you know, but for the grace of God, I'm still here today, and I'm not dead, and I survived through that, because there's a lot of people that didn't, you know, and that's really scary. It's like, there's so many things that I am aware of that happened during my use, but I have no memory of whatsoever. And I can remember when I first got sober, there was this thing that we say in recovery that more will be revealed. And I used to think that that meant that I would remember things from my blackouts, which by a therapist that I had at the time that I got sober, he was like, that's not what that means. And probably these memories will never come back to you. He's like, they're probably just lost forever. But you know, like, so many people had fights with me. So many people had arguments with me. I've had a lot of arguments with people that were blackout drinking and things like that, you know, and they don't remember it the next day, which is one of the reasons why one of my rules is when somebody reaches out to me today, you know, it's like if a friend of mine goes back out there and starts drinking and they call me, like, let's say at like, you know, 10 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning or something, and they've been drinking, I'll sit there and talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes on the phone. And then what I always say to them is, are you safe? Are you okay? And then like have them tell me where they are, you know, and then I'll say, you know, like, can we talk tomorrow? Like, why don't you call me tomorrow? And they're always like, oh yeah, you know, like, let me call you tomorrow. And they don't typically call because, you know, whatever, but, and then I check in with them the next day to make sure that they're okay and whatever, and text them and just like, hey, are you okay? Do you remember us talking last night? And typically they're very embarrassed, you know, but like one of the reasons why I have set that boundary is because there's no reason to argue or have a conversation with somebody that is in a blackout, because they're not going to remember it the next day. Somebody that's that intoxicated, it's pointless to argue with somebody that is that intoxicated. You're never going to they're not going to remember it. You're not going to get your point across. There's no reason to argue with somebody that is that intoxicated or try to prove a point or whatever, you know. And but it's very, very scary, you know. And what's so weird, I was gonna say funny, but it's not funny. What's so strange, I guess, looking back on it is, I can almost kind of remember like the moment before I would black out. Like I can remember, it would be like where I would feel like so perfectly buzzed that I would like want to hold on to that moment forever. And that's like what I think a lot of alcoholics and addicts try to do, where we try to hold on to that feeling for a very long time of that, where it feels like we're perfectly high. That's where we want to hold on to it. But at that point, I'd already had too many drinks. They just hadn't hit my system yet. And so it would be like, I would be there for like 10 minutes and then I wouldn't remember anything after it. And then the next day people would be like, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember that? Or I would have glimpses of memories. I would have glimpses of like maybe kissing somebody, but I wouldn't remember who it was or where it was or what time it was or whatever. You know, like you have no lapse of time where you're at. And it's very, very scary. And the thing is, I used to think it was maybe genetic that I was a blackout drinker because it started so young for me. But I think it really had to do with the amount that I was drinking. The reason I also thought that was that there's so many people that drank just as much as I did that never blackout drank. I mean, I know like some pretty hardcore alcoholics that, even though I drank a lot, could probably drink me under the table, and they never had one blackout, period, in the story. Never had one. So there's no rhyme or reason to who has them or who doesn't have them. I do believe there's some kind of like genetic makeup to why some people have them more than others. But like I said, scientifically, I don't know, or medically, I don't know what that's about, and I really haven't looked into it. I mean, that's not something that I look into today. Because I don't live it anymore and whatever. And I honestly don't get asked a lot about blackouts. And the reason that I'm doing this video is because I want to make people more aware of it. That it is common and it is prevalent that people, you know. And that's why I think it's important for, in situations where people like are super, super intoxicated, that you don't let them just like go off on their own, because they may be in a blackout and they may do something that they're not aware of, and just like walk down some random street or something like that, or you know, like they never know, like, and they have no memory or they're not cognizant of what they're doing whatsoever. And you know, it's like you can't babysit. Almost said a bad word. You can't babysit and you can't chaperone and things like that. But you know, like you don't know if that person is there. I will say this: if you have a friend or a family member that is saying that they're blacking out, but maybe not using that word, like they're saying things to you like, well, I don't remember what I did last night, or, and I'm not talking about once, I'm not talking about like at a wedding reception, somebody, because I do believe that there are people that are not alcoholics that have had blackout experiences. I think that that can happen, and somebody is not an alcoholic. You know, somebody asked me the other day, they said, do you believe there's a difference between substance abuse and chemical dependency? Absolutely. You know, do I believe that there are people that can use for a certain period of time and then they are not alcoholics or addicts, and then at some period of time they can go to just drinking like a glass or two of wine a night or smoking a joint every once in a while? Yeah, I do absolutely 100% believe that there are people like that. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people, you know, it doesn't work for me. And so, but I do believe that there are people like that. I also believe that there are people that have had blackouts that are not alcoholics because they drank enough that it got them to that state once in a blue moon. But if you have somebody in your family or a friend or whatever that is mentioning to you on a regular basis of going out, that they're having what I'm talking about, gaps in memory, where they're not remembering things the next day. And I'm not just talking about once or twice. I'm talking about it's happening when they're drinking on a regular basis. Your friend needs help. Your family member needs help, because that is a surefire sign of somebody like having real issues with drinking if it's happening on a regular basis. Because I didn't even know, because I wasn't, like, I would say to people, like, I don't remember it, but like the people that I was hanging around with were people that were heavy drinkers. I mean, it wasn't like I was saying it to my dad, you know, I wasn't going to my dad and going, oh dad, like I'm forgetting everything that happened the night before, you know. So the people that I was telling that to were people that drank just as much as I did, probably many of which were blackout drinkers as well, you know. And so for them, it didn't seem strange, or they had heard those same things and whatever. I think the saddest thing to me today is when I see, and to be honest with you, I see some like influencers that use this term and they try to use it like in a funny way. And they're people that I love. Like, there's some influencers out there that I absolutely love and adore and watch all of their videos and TikToks and things like that, or Instagram stories or whatever, and they use this term and they think it's funny, and I don't think it's funny. It's like they'll say, oh, I got so blackout drunk last night. Like, that is not a funny thing to me. Like, to use that as a funny, like, oh, like, we drank so much. And I'm not talking about 21-year-olds or, you know, whatever. I'm talking about 25 to 35-year-olds, you know, that are talking about getting blackout drunk. Like, I don't think that's funny. You know, and I've had friends of mine and things like that I've had to say, I don't think that term is funny. Like, that's a very dangerous term for a lot of people. Like, until you've lived it, or until you've been with somebody that's a blackout drinker, like, you don't really understand the severity of what you're talking about. It's not funny, you know? Like, I mean, I've seen YouTube videos where people will, like, the first thing they'll say is, oh my God, I got so blackout drunk last night. I'm like, okay, and you're making a YouTube video today and you think this is funny to talk about it because why? You know, and that's where people come across me talking about this, and they'll say things like, well, Peter was a prude, or Peter lived it. Peter lived it. And the fact that Peter lived it and survived it and is still here today is testament to the life of recovery, and I'm grateful that I made it out, because it wasn't like I just had one blackout. It wasn't like I just had two. It wasn't like I just had three. I had years of blackouts. There are so many things that happened to me in blackouts that I don't remember that I was told. The fact that I am sitting here on this front porch today, being able to talk to my neighbor or whatever, like just relax and, you know, have a glass of iced coffee is amazing. It is a miracle. It is a true blessing, you know? And it is fantastic that I'm sitting here today, because I used to live with every single day of my life for the last several years that I drank, ending in a blackout, where I didn't remember anything from, let's say, you know, 9 or 10 o'clock at night until 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't remember, you know, or 6 o'clock, or whenever I woke up the next day, I didn't remember anything that had happened, you know? I'd wake up in my bed and be like, oh my God, the last thing that I remember is ordering a Jack and Coke at this bar. Like, how did I get here? That's scary, you know? And then you don't want to ask people, you don't want to tell people, because you don't want them to say, do you not remember? Like, because then it's like, okay, there really is a problem. Which is why I'm saying to you, if you have somebody like that in your life, there really is a problem. And reach out to them and say, I'm concerned about you, you know? Like, somebody educated me on the seriousness of blackouts, and what you're doing is not college fun, it's not funny, haha. It's scary to me when I see college kids that are like binge drinking, because that's real popular with college kids to binge drink, and they're binge drinking to the point of blacking out, and they think that's a funny story to tell, when a lot of really scary stuff happens when people blackout drink. There's a lot of scary stuff that happens when people binge drink, you know? So it's not funny to me. It's not just some haha kind of story, you know? It's something that happened to me, and I'm glad that I lived through it to make it to the other side. I feel very, very blessed that I'm here today, you know? Like I say, but for the grace of God, you know, like, I feel so blessed that I'm here today and I made it through that. And I'm really thankful for the question. I think it's a great question, and like I said, if you guys have other questions that you would like me to talk about, and like I always say in my videos, this is just my personal experience. You know, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a representative of any 12-step program or any other way to get sober. This is just my personal experience, strength, and hope that I'm sharing with you guys. So please let me know in the comment section below if you guys have any questions about anything else. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.